Sewing is a superpower because you can just be casually watching your favorite show, see a piece of clothing you absolutely love, and then decide to make one for yourself. Or more like, you watch the show, you see something you love, pattern it, buy the fabric, and then don't actually find the time to make it for 3 years. But today, at last, is that day. So there's this coat in the literal first scene of the Wheel of Time. It has this scarf attachment thing that doubles as a hood, and I've been dreaming about this coat since the moment it graced my screen. Because ya girl is lazy, and I cannot be bothered to carry an umbrella unless it is absolutely downpouring, and most of the time I just end up pulling my scarf up over my head and just dealing with it. But having a single garment that has both an inbuilt hood feature and still allows me to wrap my neck up warmly, my idea of the perfect piece of clothing. So after checking my 3-year-old pattern with a quick paper mock-up, just to get my head around how this thing works again, I'm just getting started on a real mock-up, a fabric mock-up, to test out the fit in real actual human scale.
The original garment actually doesn't have sleeves, it's more of a cloak type thing, but because I plan to wear mine in London cold temperatures, I am going to add sleeves to mine.
I don't know how we managed to make this happen. But the seam for this sleeve, I mean, we're trying it 2 different ways. I'm using a sleeve pattern that I have drafted and redrafted over the course of about 10 years. So this is one of my crazier sleeve patterns. It's been through a lot. But trying to pin it the way that I've drawn it, it ends up very, shall we say, shizcore. I mean, it's kind of cool. It's kind of a vibe. I don't think I could have done this on purpose if I wanted to.
It's giving we a Fibonacci spiral at home.
Yeah, like kind of fun. Marley's doing the sleeve pinning over there. I'm doing the body pinning here. But we're also gonna try pinning this one like in a normal way.
The way
and just see like which one works better for this project.
So the Fibonacci sleeve was not quite the right jam for this particular project. So we will be going with a boring, straight sleeve seam for this project.
I've drafted the base of the coat with a more late Victorian shape, just because it's a silhouette I really love, and I find it's really comfortable, especially with garments that have a lot of fabric, like long coats, and especially long coats with long wool scarf attachments. I just find that anchoring the coat at a fitted waist instead of just hanging the whole thing from the shoulders makes the whole thing feel a lot more balanced and a lot less heavy. It's a lot easier on my back because I'm not carrying all that weight on my shoulders and in my upper back. But that's just me, and the beauty of this skill is not just being able to reproduce something that you love, but to do it in a way that best suits your own personal taste and body shape. So I can take this garment that I really love and that I want for myself, but just make a couple of tweaks to make it a little more me. I just had to make a couple of adjustments to my pattern, namely lowering the waistline, widening the back a bit, resizing the armhole, and widening the scarf by about 8 inches so that it fit comfortably over my head. I know this sounds like a lot, but it's really just minor stuff. Just, you know, adding a couple inches here and there. And feeling confident in the pattern now, I can start cutting out of this beautiful wool felt that I'll be using as the main fabric.
I've just turned over this bolt of fabric, and I see this is where the piggies have been hiding. Dun dun dun. Someone is at fault, and it is a little piggy with little ginger hairs. Sad violin noises. Nothing happened here.
I'm also preparing some shaped canvas pieces out of this horsehair Tailor's canvas that will go into the front of the coat so it holds a really nice structure. And after stitching together the front seams to form the entire front halves of each side of the coat, I can just get these canvas layers in, making sure that I'm pinning with close attention to the dimension of the canvas so that the felt really conforms to the right shape. Doing this flat on a table, as you can probably imagine, changing things from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions would really alter the shape from a flat pattern into a 3-dimensional human. So I'm really trying to work with this garment as 3-dimensionally as I can. This was probably the most time-consuming part of the process, aside from the pattern work, of course. If not for these canvas layers, the project probably would have taken me about a day or 2. But as I am always of the opinion, structuring and handwork are just always so worth the effort in making a garment just that much more crisp and precise. So I always find it worth the effort.
You're like a cat that like comes over and like inspects your work.
And then if I was a cat, I'd go.
Yeah, knock the pins off the table.
We start eating some fabric, you never know.
The canvas layers are anchored to the fronts of the coat along the front seam, just so that I can use those seam allowances as a place to anchor the canvas without it showing through to the front of the coat, and at the front, side, and arm's eye edges with the linen stay tapes, which are once again just whip stitched on, catching only the very smallest amount of the wool ground fabric underneath the canvas to avoid the stitches showing through. Then, after pinning on some pocket pieces, we must never forget the pockets, I can get to work stitching together the rest of the body pieces.
Somebody wants to learn how to treadle. Oh no, you're just having a nap back there. Oh no. I can't disturb you.
I've built some deep pleats into the back of the coat just to give it a bit more swoosh. So these are getting pressed in with plenty of steam to set them really nicely, and then I'm tacking them down on the inside of the coat. Now for the important bits. Firstly, stitching on the scarf attachment, which is only attached from about mid-shoulder to mid-shoulder on either side, all the way around the neck, as I very quickly discovered in the mock-up fitting that stitching it all the way down the sides of the coat would cause it to pull weirdly and be super tight across the head when it was drawn up in hood mode. So this way the ends are free to do as they wish, and I am also free to do as I wish with them in scarf form. Then I can just get the sleeves on, which I always prefer to do by hand, just because I find wrangling arm size under a sewing machine to be just as slow and more tedious than just doing it by hand. A nice, good, strong backstitch is going to be very suitable for keeping this on nice and tight. Then I'm just turning up the hem. I don't normally recommend herringbone stitching hems on long garments just because the long stitches leave them really prone to catching on heels or furniture or stray nails as you walk. But since this is getting hidden under a lining, it'll be fine. Herringbone stitches work really well around curves, so I'm taking full advantage of this stitch where it won't cause its problems. I'm also putting 2 shoulder pads into the shoulder area just to give some light structure to the shoulder edges and to help the sleeves stand up really nicely. And after stitching the same body pieces in lining form, I can go ahead and line the whole coat to finish it off really nicely. I'm first just turning in all of my coat edges and whip stitching them down and giving them a really good press. This will just help the edges to stay nice and crisp, hopefully without the need for top stitching. It's amazing how much of a difference a lining makes. Having tried the raw wool coat on a few times during this process, it is so sticky and clingy without the lining, so I'm very much looking forward to this part of the process. Then I can carefully pin the rest of the lining in, matching things up so that I make sure all the seams are in the right place before turning in the raw edges. I'll just carefully whip stitch this all the way around the edges to secure it into place. This is definitely the more traditional way of doing things. Modern sewing would just have you stitch the whole thing inside out, all the way around, and then turn it through the bottom edge. But personally, I just prefer a nice bit of handwork, and I find that taking the extra step of securing down the seam allowances and pressing them first really eliminates the need for a top stitching layer, which I think was just not quite the style I was going for, and was going to be a bit more difficult to achieve with the scarf attachment a little bit further up. So at long last, 3 years later, I finally have the coat of my dreams. I absolutely love this thing. It is a perfect swooshy length to have the right amount of drama, whilst being short enough to be practical for adventures. The cut feels so unique and has that historical flair that I really love to incorporate into my wardrobe, and the scarf does exactly its job of keeping my neck warm whilst also keeping the mist and the rain off. Moiraine was absolutely correct when she swooshed that coat on in the opening of episode 1. Personally, I can only hope to embody that level of dramatic adventurer in my everyday life. If you are also a fellow Wheel of Time enjoyer, you might enjoy checking out my previous series on reconstructing Moraine's white tower gown using only the 17th century based sewing methods that I hypothesize would have existed in the show. Minus the channeling, of course. Or is there? Anyway, if you want to support this channel and future sewing projects, you can find me over on Patreon, where we put out a weekly behind-the-scenes update on all the projects and shenanigans we get up to in the workroom if you want to keep up to date with what's coming up on this channel. And you don't even have to be a paying member to get the behind-the-scenes update that we release as every video comes out. Or simply subscribe right here on YouTube and stay tuned for future adventures in this place where fashion history meets modern sustainability. Until next time.
She's on the loose again! Scaring pigeons left, right, and center. The wheel of time be spinning these sick beats.